All right, so I'm here to talk to you about SEEK headquarters, the interiors part of the category or the process, and so launching straight into it. Here's an image of the building finished, looking east. Just to give a little bit of context of the location, I know you're probably all familiar with it, but it's smack bang in the middle of Cremorne, being what they call now the Silicon Yarra, apparently.
It's just a couple of little houses, isn't it, Ingrid?
Pretty much a couple of little houses in the middle of a few other little houses.
Yeah.
The interesting part of this project is that it did start with a strategy piece. So we met SEEK back in 2015 and they were growing as an organisation and were really needing some assistance in working out what the next best move for them was around really doing a whole workplace strategy piece of work to understand what workplace was going to support the growth of their business going forward. And so we started off with this workplace strategy piece that went into 2016. We were then introduced to the owner of this site in Cremorne through the relationship with SEEK. So they had a site that SEEK liked the look of. That developer, being Cremorne Properties, didn't have an architect. So SEEK introduced us to Cremorne Properties. We then had a week kind of beauty pageant with Cremorne Properties to prove that we would be a good partner of choice to work with. We managed to get through that gate and then started designing the base building for Cremorne Properties as the client on one side, whilst we were still working with SEEK on the workplace strategy and then into the interior design part. So we had two clients, two contracts, one building, and pretty much one team working collaboratively within Hassell, which they were quite comfortable with that. Sometimes we have those Chinese walls issues. And that ran right through till the base building was basically finished in right at the end of 2020, early 21, and the interiors was finished at the end of June in 2021. However, then they were due to move in July, and then of course that all went pear-shaped with COVID, and they finally moved in November. But they're still transitioning their people from a work from home situation. Quickly run through the other bits around the site. So it's a massive site, 6,750 square metres. I'll explain what we did with the building, but it ended up with a floor plate area for the interiors, typical floors of around 4,000 square metres. Obviously, the heritage in Cremorne played a huge part in influencing some of the design. A few just headlines there around budget. We had 300 bike parks, large end of trip facility in the basement, 200 cars on site. And they needed between 15 and 19,000. They've ended up taking the full 19,000. But we did design a whole lot of potential things that could happen on the ground floor if they didn't need to take up that space, including a childcare, some incubator spaces, and there are some food and beverage and retail spaces. So the envelope based on the planning requirements on this site was pretty standard, I suppose, a 10-metre wall high, street wall height, wrapping all the way around the boundary, and then a kind of wedding cake arrangement to create a building. We didn't really like that as an idea. We particularly didn't like the 10-metre wall high, 10-metre high wall on the street wall. We thought that was a really aggressive thing for that particular part of Cremorne, where there's quite a lot of low-rise resi on the south and the west and the north. So we looked at within that envelope, what space could we use, how could we set back and be respectful for the neighbours, create contiguous floor plates. That was quite important to have very similar floor plates of a similar scale. So we pulled the building right back in and went straight up, and then used that planning envelope to create the barns that then helped, I suppose, compose the overarching concept, which is a contemporary warehouse. And so the contemporary warehouse concept was driven by the planning constraints, the heritage and context of Cremorne, and also from the interiors brief, because they wanted a kind of hackable space that could be easily converted and be flexible over time. So this concept going into the interiors part of it, we went through a whole series of workshops with them internally, and this was some of the work that we did I won't go right through the detail of it, there's a bit too much in there, but this was setting up a whole series of design principles that the workplace interiors was then guided by. And they had a very clear project vision. So it was about their people. They wanted a place where people would come and work together. They didn't want an ordinary office building. That was very clear. They wanted something with character, authenticity and meaning were really important to them. They wanted a place their people could really connect with. So again, some more of the workplace aspirations: needed to be flexible and efficient, really intuitive, simple, smart, practical, easy, provide high and low technology. That was quite an important driver. So that technology kind of is there but not obvious. Supports the whole person and connects people with people. These are just some of the zoning diagrams that we started with, just to work through how we wanted to lay out the building both in a vertical and in a horizontal way, and also some more of the concept around how the internal space was going to be put together. So the main concept being that it was greater than the sum of parts, but they really wanted this, as I said, hackable interior space that they could adapt over time, so it could be pulled apart and put back together in different ways. Again, that was going to really contribute to sustainability as well. Here's some concept images that we put together to start to talk about the look and feel. And then we did a whole series of testing of different work styles, so different types of work settings that would suit the various tasks of all the different activities that their different teams would get into. Again, here's some planning. So just to have a look at the planning of we've got the two main cores here on the east. We've got a secondary core, it's just a fire stair on the west, but we have access to natural light into that core, and I'll show you a bit more on that in a minute. We wanted light basically to permeate right through the building, so that the main lift core has light coming through it, and also the toilets on the eastern side also have natural light coming through to them. We have these winter gardens. 1 minute. Okay, winter gardens on the east, which have a double facade, so you can open those up. That's the typical work floor. It has the ability to really change and grow as they need to. This floor is level 6, which is the social space. They wanted one big space where everyone could come together. They've got beer taps, they've got baristas up here, they've got a bottle shop over in this corner. It's a party floor basically, and that was really important to them. Great access to outdoor space as well. There's an axo of a typical floor there. Just some imagery, the boardroom on the left-hand side there, and some of those social spaces on level 6 up the top. And then down the bottom, the marketplace, which is one area on the ground floor where all 1,000 staff can meet. I'll whip through the colour strategy, and the furniture needed to be quite residential in its feel and quite individual. There's just some images of the main entry. We collaborated with an Aboriginal artist called Dixon Patton on this great piece of art that's on the floor here, that's projected onto the floor. Op Central is like an IT help desk.